Today's video is addressing this question I'm getting now of what is best when it comes to building muscle. Should we do higher intensity, less sets, or do a higher volume with more sets, and what's better? And there's research supporting both. Well, here's kind of how I'm looking at this. In the previous video, I talked about how when it comes to building muscle, some of the science these days is pointing to the idea of fatigue's where it's at. It doesn't really matter so much how you fatigue it or the circumstances of the fatigue. As long as there's a great deal of fatigue in the muscle, then it has to build back up and supercompensate, and that's how you build muscle. And there's advantages to both high set, low set, and maybe it's a case of one is better for you than the other. So when we have low sets, we're talking like, one, maybe two set, in the classic idea of what constitutes a low set. And the advantage with this is that it's a little easier mentally to get dialed in for real high intensity, high drain during those one or two sets. Like when you limit in your mind, you're like, I only get like one set or two sets or whatever. You're going to push past that pain barrier of thinking, well, that's all I can do. So we used to do this a lot in bike racing. I did high lap races, but when sometimes we do one or two lap, we would bust our ass as hard as possible during that one lap or two laps because we knew you don't get another chance. You don't have another lap to make up time that you lose. So as a result, we always used to say one lap was way harder than doing like four because it was 100% all the time. So that's one of the advantages with the low sets is you've kind of got your back to the wall, now or never kind of thing. So you're going to push harder. But of course, you don't have as much time under tension. And no matter how you do this, time is a factor. You're just not going to spend as much energy when you do something for less time. So with high sets, we've got the opposite scenario, okay? We've got a lot of time, and I know guys here, and I used to do this too, where we just do like 9, 10 sets, set after set, and do nothing but the same exercise for a long period of time. So yes, it's feasible that you could do a lot of fatigue with this. However, the catch is that intensity, like how low can you drain the energy? I like to think of your energy levels in your muscles kind of like these energy life meters in these video games I used to play, where you would get hurt, but it would automatically regenerate over time. Then you get damaged, and as long as you didn't get hit enough, it would regenerate fully. Well, I think it's kind of the same thing with muscles, is you're constantly regenerating. So if you know in your mind, you're like, oh, I've got like 9 sets I'm doing. Your first few sets you're doing, you're only draining it a little bit. You don't have that back against the wall mentality of like, I've got to do it now or never. So you don't work quite as hard. So you end up potentially doing a whole lot of volume, but you're never really working to a high fatigue on any of it. But that's in question. That's why I put the question mark there, because there's a lot of stuff that you come across these days in fitness where people say, well, if you do it this a certain way, this happens. I was like, well, maybe it happens. It could happen. Depends on your circumstances. It's kind of like when people talk about how diet soda causes weight gain and obesity. And I'm like, well, there's no calories to it. How can that be? Well, supposedly it makes you think that you've eaten something sweet when you haven't. So you crave something sweet. So you're going to eat something sweet or eat more the next time. And it's like this idea of like, yeah, it could happen. But you're making a lot of assumptions that, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and it downline, and therefore, and it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe that's not. Maybe you do like 9 sets, and every one of them is like balls to the wall as hard as you can. I don't know. Maybe there's other factors to consider, like your mental focus, your discipline. Are you, maybe it matters. Like high rep training isn't effective if you're constantly distracted by thumbing on your phone on Facebook. But if you're focused every time, maybe it is more of I don't know. That's why I'm making this video. You find out. Because ultimately, I can't give you solutions. Nobody can. I can give you answers. I can give you ideas. But ultimately, it's your job to come up with your own solutions. So let me know if you have questions down below. Be fit, live free.